When Destiny first burst onto the scene from Bungie, I was excited because they were promising an expansive world to adventure in, with an immersive story and a character that you could build and grow over a period of 10 years. The chance to make this character completely yours, with a history tailored to you, equipped with your own gear that would be hard earned with story to tell. This sounded amazing and something I was excited to play. When Destiny came out, the combat was brilliant, the world's beautiful, but the game was flawed. The loot system didn't work well, too much garbage a lot of the time, translating into a frustrating experience with Cryptarch. Often there wasn't a lot to do in the game and it became highly repetitive after a while. Running the same patrols over and over, the same section of the story, complete with cutscenes, gradually killed the desire to play. It was just too much grinding. To Bungie's credit, they were very active in trying to address some of the issues, but this unfortunately resulted in a lot of patches and adjustments throughout the game, which often resulted in new and innovative frustrations. Nerfing the power on your favourite gun, chests suddenly not paying out anything but green engrams, and fluctuating power levels tested many players' patience. Gamers pushed the boundaries too, finding holes in Destiny to exploit and ways to work around the repetitive grind, such as the infamous loot cave. Successive expansions grew the story and brought new modes of play and gradually refined the game. Nobody would argue that the Taken King and House of Wolves weren't excellent expansions, and definitely improved the Destiny experience, helping to shape the direction for future games. Some of the events, while cute, such as Valentine's and Halloween, weren't very interesting or rewarding, and just felt like filler. The Sparrow Racing League was an interesting idea, but I don't know why some of these game modes couldn't have always been available to play instead of unlocked only at various times. Unfortunately, one of my biggest complaints about the game was never addressed: the raids. I've never been able to play any of the raids because I haven't been able to find a group to play with. Now, before you start saying stop whining, you should have used the looking for group app, I did try to use those repeatedly with no success. It can be very hard to find people online to play with who are available when you are, and to find enough time to play through the raid. And I think too there are regional constraints. Australia, it's often very difficult to find people to play with. Some of the raids required a substantial amount of time to complete. I would have always appreciated some kind of mechanism from Bungie to facilitate hooking individuals up for raiding. I just can't understand why they would never do it, despite their explanations. Surely creating a barrier to playing the game is a bad idea. So when Destiny 2 was announced, I was excited. Would they finally deliver the Destiny experience that would be all it originally promised? A lot of gamers felt the original experience was a beta that was dumped on us for testing, and we were somehow misled. The ones that stuck through the first 3 years, through the expansions, were eventually rewarded for their hard work, but it still had a way to go. Then the first kick to the balls came from Bungie. None of your progression or gear would be following you over to Destiny 2. This was a huge disappointment for a lot of gamers and a betrayal of the initial promise of Destiny. I was super disappointed in this, but hopefully they would be able to make it up to us with a much improved game. Did they manage to do it? Well, I'm happy to say they did. Destiny 2 has quite a lot of improvements under the hood, and it has really revitalized the game. Your story picks up with your old characters as the last city comes under attack from a massive Cabal force led by Dominus Gaul. The Guardians find themselves fleeing the city after being depowered from the light. Forced to retreat back to the farm in the European Dead Zone, you fight to recover survivors from the tower and find a way to fight back against Gaul and the Red Legion. There's plenty of story this time, and it advances the story, while also adding in some much needed character development for some of the main characters. Cade 6 is still a favourite, and a much needed source of humour in a story which is often tense and grim. Some of the non-characters are gone by the end of the main story. The speaker. The Grimoire cards are gone, which I have mixed feelings about. They were cool to collect, but it is better that the lore is now back in the game. I did still find myself hunting for dead ghosts for a while, but they don't think they exist anymore. Now the ghost goes around indicating when there are things to scan and investigates and lets you know little snippets of story, little nuggets of things. There's also lore on some of the equipment now that can be revealed when you look into the equipment closer. You will have to start back at level 1 with a low light level and no equipment again, which is pretty irritating, but thankfully it doesn't take too long or too much effort to get back up to power. You should be at max level of 20 by the end of the story campaign. Incidentally, many game elements are gated behind level 20 and you won't be able to access them until you reach that level. This is pretty annoying, but I guess it's a way of ensuring Guardians don't become too powerful too soon in the story. The new director is excellent, and together with the fast travel locations, it's much easier to move between locations quickly. It's also helpful for the map to show locations to lost sectors, chests and Cade's stashes, although they can still be damn difficult to locate. The map shows you the general area, but doesn't help you to figure out if it's up in the air or on a big structure or deep underground somewhere. You'll still spend a lot of time hunting for these things. Weapons are now divided between kinetic, energy and heavy weapons with a mix of different weapons. You can even have a kinetic auto rifle in one slot and an energy auto rifle in another if you want. It seems to be a lot more flexible. Some of the new weapon types such as submachine gun and grenade launcher are very good. Hand cannons continue to be a favourite, and the exotic Sunburst is an excellent gun. Weapons have a much easier upgrade path now, primarily just destroying an item to upgrade the power on the weapon. A new mod slot allows you to attach optional modifications to the gun, much simpler and doesn't require you to spend hours leveling up to access the capabilities of your weapon. Overall, the light system has been greatly simplified, and you basically increase it through your equipped weapons and gear. To upgrade your gear, you need an amount of shards obtained by smashing a legendary or exotic item and an item of higher level than the one you're upgrading. So far this hasn't been too irritating, and you don't need to rely on Everburst to provide you with these elements, although you could throw money at it to get items and level up faster for sure. A perhaps slightly more controversial element has been the changing of shaders from being endlessly reusable to a consumable. This is pretty annoying if you want to have all of your armor pieces on theme. You will need multiple copies of the shader, and since they only drop randomly, this is a real pain. I guess that it's only a cosmetic, so it's not a game breaker, but I do wonder why they thought this change was a good idea. Bungie claims it's to motivate you to run adventures in the various locations multiple times so you can get the shaders. Seems like annoying busy work, so we'll see how that works out. This time around there are a few new locations to visit, including the European Dead Zone on Earth, Io, a moon of Jupiter, Titan, a moon of Saturn, and Nessus, a planetoid. The new location is good, although the EDZ on Earth isn't really that different from the previous Earth locations. I'm a little disappointed that the other planets we had available in Destiny aren't available anymore. It would have been nice if you could still visit the moon, Mars, etc. I guess I was just hoping that the universe would gradually expand, adding in more and more locations and feeling really immersive, that you had a degree of freedom in which you could travel to anywhere you wanted to go in adventure. Rumour has it the first expansion for Destiny 2 is Curse of Osiris, and it will take us to Mercury, so that's something to look forward to. There's plenty of activities to keep you busy, however, and much better design than previously, although it's likely they will still get repetitive given time. Once you finish the campaign story, there are adventures, side missions similar to patrol missions from Destiny, lost sectors which are dungeon-like activities for some quick combat and treasure, cooperative strikes are back, the Crucible multiplayer is still the same, although you can now fight with kinetic or energy weapons straight off, only having to obtain ammunition during the fight for heavy weapons. Public events still happen in the worlds which you can join with other players, and completing a certain mechanic can upgrade the event to a heroic event, which will reward you with a better prize but increases the difficulty. There's also a new weekly event called a Flashpoint, which will open up a patrol event which you can complete to score some great loot. Cade 6 will be selling treasure maps for this event. Destiny 2 is a solid improvement over the original Destiny, and even the later enhanced iterations through The Taken King and House of Wolves. You can tell Bungie has learnt some solid lessons, is responding to the fans, and is working hard to make the Destiny world work well. The storyline is at last progressing, the characters are growing, and new worlds are opening up to explore. Destiny 2 ends with the Guardian leaders making assertions to stop hiding behind the last city's walls, to get out there into the universe and be more proactive, a promise which I hope Bungie makes good on. Just don't expect to get another free pass on wiping us out and making us start over. You can do it once, but I don't think you can do it again and again. As I've been compiling this video, Bungie has released a patch for Destiny which addressed the issues with the broken clan user interface and fixed a problem where the MITRE mini tool failed to drop. Hopefully they will be as responsive fixing some of the other weird glitches that occasionally occur. I give Destiny 2 a 7 out of 10. It's a solid improvement with some new features, but still featuring the same quality shoot and loot gameplay. Hopefully the improvements will keep the game fun to play, and the Bungie team will be revealing new events as we progress to the DLC to help keep the Destiny world fresh and exciting. As always, if you liked the video, please click subscribe and feel free to leave some comments below. Let me know what you thought of Destiny 2. Thanks for watching.